Some of them were killers, some of them were gamblers and prostitutes, but you know, they all had one thing, and it was survival.
We have the infamous Qing Shi. Qing Shi ruled over 50 to 70,000 pirates during her lifetime, captaining a fleet of over 1,800 ships. First up, we have Sally Skull. Sally Skull was a great shooter, a cusser, and a notorious horse thief. Throughout her lifetime, Sally had a total of 5 husbands whom she kept for as long as they could handle her. And Sally grew up tough, having to constantly defend their land from intruders. She was always ready for a fight, and apparently she was ambidextrous, which meant she was a great shooter in both hands. But I also mentioned that she was a notorious horse thief. In fact, she made a yearly trip from Texas to Mexico and back again by herself and would always come back with horses somehow. Whether or not it was strictly legal, Sally would never tell.
In the annals of the Wild West, tales of lawlessness run rampant. But today, we delve into the darker side, exploring the stories of the ruthless women who ruled the roost. The Wild West, an era of sheer audaciousness, infinite landscapes, and anarchy. A period when narratives of deadly duels, daring stagecoach, and audacious cattle thefts were the norm. But lurking behind the archetypal tales of cowboys and outlaws, a lesser-known yet more intriguing narrative emerges. This is the scandalous story of women who were just as merciless and relentless as their male counterparts. Women who, amidst the dust storms and tumbleweeds, managed to create a unique space for themselves, a platform for their nefarious activities. This wasn't an era of damsels in distress and submissive housewives. Instead, these women were an embodiment of fear and courage. They were bandits, murderers, and scam artists. Their names alone enough to induce terror into the hearts of those unfortunate enough to encounter them. They found their home amidst the chaos, utilizing the absence of law and order as the perfect canvas for their criminal exploits. These weren't your average women. They manipulated the harsh realities of frontier life, using their intellect, and in many instances, their feminine allure to outwit their unsuspecting victims. They left behind a path of destruction and despair, their deeds a testament to their ruthlessness. These women didn't just partake in the lawlessness that characterized the Wild West. No, they were initiators, masterminds of their personal reign of terror. Each of these women boasts a unique tale, their stories etched into the annals of history. Their exploits have become legendary, their influence on this era undeniable. From the bustling saloons to the vast open plains, they made their mark, their stories woven intricately into the tapestry of the Wild West. Their tales are not for the faint-hearted. Instead, they offer a chilling insight into a side of this era that often remains untouched. These women were far removed from the angels of virtue and innocence that society typically associated with the fairer sex. They embodied a different female archetype, one capable of the same violent acts and depravity as the most infamous male outlaws. Amidst the patriarchal society of the Wild West, these women stood out. They rejected society's norms, choosing instead to carve out their path, their actions echoing throughout the ages. These women were fearless and unapologetic. They embraced the treacherous world they inhabited, using every tool at their disposal to survive and thrive. They were outcasts, yet they stood tall, their legacy imprinted in the unforgiving landscape of the Wild West. These women were more than just outlaws. They were survivors, their tales a testament to their strength, cunning, and indomitable will. So, as we journey through the annals of history, let us not forget these women. Let us remember for who they were: ruthless, cunning, and unapologetically audacious. They were not victims, but victors, their stories forever etched into the legacy of the Wild West. They were women who dared to defy societal norms, who dared to step into the chaos and rule it. They were far from the picture of virtue and innocence typically associated with women of their time. Instead, they embodied a different kind of female character, one capable of the same acts of violence and cruelty as the most notorious male outlaws. It's a stark reminder that even in a world dominated by men, these women were able to carve a niche of terror and chaos, their tales still echoing in the corners of the Wild West. Belle Starr, the Bandit Queen, a woman whose name struck fear into the hearts of many. Born as Myra Maybelle Shirley, Belle Starr was no ordinary woman. Originating from the tumultuous landscapes of the Wild West, her life was a testament to the unpredictability and chaos that characterized the era. Her upbringing in a society where lawlessness was the norm laid the groundwork for her future. Belle Starr was a product of the untamed West, an embodiment of its lawlessness and disorder. During the latter part of the 19th century, she emerged from obscurity, Her reputation grew rapidly, making her a figure of dread and respect even among the most hardened outlaws. The tales of her exploits would cause even the bravest of men to tremble in fear. Starr was an expert manipulator. She utilized her sharp intellect and irresistible charm to ensnare her unsuspecting targets. She was a Robin Hood of sorts, but her actions bore a selective edge. Her charity favored the lawless, the outlaws, and the renegades who roamed the vast expanse of the wild frontier. Her criminal undertakings were as varied as they were daring. From stealing horses to operating illicit distilleries, from providing refuge to fugitives to masterminding robberies, Starr was a woman of unparalleled talents. She skillfully utilized her abilities to etch an infamous reputation in the annals of the Wild West. Belle Starr was known for her distinctive style. She was often sighted riding side saddle, dressed in an eye-catching black velvet riding habit and a plumed hat with a pair of pistols strapped to her waist. Her appearance was as remarkable as her actions, symbolizing a challenge to the law and order of the time. But Belle Starr was much more than a mere criminal. She was a strategist, a tactician, a mastermind. She skillfully leveraged her relationships with other notorious figures, including the infamous James Younger gang. These alliances bolstered her own criminal enterprises, enhancing her influence and reach. She was a figure of power, a queen in a kingdom of bandits, and she ruled with a ruthlessness that was both feared and respected. Her grip over her realm was unyielding, her authority unquestioned. As the years rolled by, the legend of Belle Starr grew. Stories narrating her daring exploits spread like wildfire, inspiring a mix of fear and awe in all who heard them. She was a woman who defied societal norms, choosing a life of crime over conformity. Belle Starr was, in every sense, the bandit queen. She was a symbol of the wild, untamed spirit of the West. She was a woman of audacity, her cunning unmatched, making her one of the most formidable figures of her time. Her life and actions continue to resonate through the ages, a legacy of fear and respect that endures. Belle Starr, a woman who embraced the lawlessness of the Wild West, exemplified the terror that a woman could unleash. The Bloody Benders, a family led by a woman, Kate Bender, brought a new level of terror to the Wild West. This is not just a tale of a family, but a chilling chronicle of brutality and murder that unfolded in the heart of the Kansas prairie. The late 19th century witnessed the rise of this gruesome family, who earned their name, the Bloody Benders, through their horrifying modus operandi. This was not your typical family business, not one that dealt in groceries, farming, or any of the usual trades of the time. Instead, it was a business that thrived on the very destruction of life itself, a business built on death. At the helm of this family were four sinister individuals: John Bender Sr., his wife Elvira, their son John Jr., and their daughter Kate. Each member played a part in this gruesome symphony of terror, but it was Kate Bender who emerged as the most notable. Kate Bender was a woman who was far from the average frontierswoman. This beautiful woman used her striking looks as a lure, drawing unsuspecting travelers to the Benders Inn. Her beauty was not the only weapon in her arsenal. She was also a self-proclaimed spiritualist and healer, who claimed to have powers that were beyond the realm of the ordinary. This facade of spirituality and healing was nothing more than a ruse, a deceptive ploy to instill trust in her victims. Once they were at ease, she led them to a dinner table that was a trap door in disguise. The unsuspecting victims would be dropped into a cellar, a place where death was the only escape. The Bender men had their roles too. As soon as the victims were trapped, would strike, their weapons of choice being a hammer and a knife. The brutal violence that followed was a sight that would make even the strongest of hearts quiver. The lifeless bodies of the victims were then buried in the family's orchard, their grim harvest carefully concealed beneath the soil. Over a dozen men met their end at the hands of the Bloody Benders, their lives snuffed out in the cruelest and the most horrific way imaginable. A passive participant, Kate Bender most certainly was not. She was the director of this bloody play, the puppet master pulling the strings of death. Using her charm and alleged spiritual abilities, she exploited the vulnerabilities of her victims, leading them into a deadly trap from which there was no return. However, the horrifying reign of the Bloody Benders came to an abrupt halt when their monstrous deeds were discovered. They vanished into thin air, leaving behind a trail of terror, death, and unanswered questions. The chilling tale of the Bloody Benders serves as a stark reminder of the grim realities of the Wild West, a time often romanticized in history books as an era of exciting adventure and exploration. Their story is a gruesome testament to the dark side of humanity, a side that thrives on fear, violence, and death. Kate Bender, the matriarch of America's first serial killer family, set a terrifying precedent in the annals of crime. Her name will forever be etched in the annals of American as a woman who brought a new level of brutality to the Wild West, a woman who was not just a killer but a mastermind of a horrifying killing spree that sent shivers down the spine of America. Pearl Hart, the Lady Bandit, made her mark with a heist that shocked the nation. Pearl Hart, a title that would come to be linked with audacity and defiance, was an extraordinary woman who had the audacity to defy the conventions of her era. Born in the heart of Canada, in a small, unassuming town, Pearl moved to the United States in search of adventure and a new life. In the United States, Pearl was captivated by the tumult and lawlessness of the Wild West, a region famed for its volatility and untamed nature. The Wild West was an area the law had weak roots, and chaos often reigned supreme. It is here that Pearl found her true calling. Her life was characterized by a series of trials, tribulations, and remarkable events that molded her into the lawless Maverick she became. One of the most significant moments of her life was her audacious stagecoach robbery, a bold act that engraved her name into the annals of American history. This audacious act took place in the year of 1899. Pearl, in collaboration with her accomplice, man of questionable morals named Joe Boot, meticulously plotted and executed a daring heist on a stagecoach traveling the risky route from Globe to Florence, Arizona. During the robbery, Pearl brandished a .38 revolver, a powerful weapon that commanded respect and fear. She faced the passengers of the stagecoach, her eyes burning with determination, and demanded they surrender their valuable possessions. This audacious act was a stark departure from societal norms, and it shook the nation to its core. Here was a woman, a lady bandit, boldly tossed caution to the winds and committed an act that most would consider the exclusive domain of hardened, ruthless men. However, Pearl Hart was no ordinary woman. She was a force of nature, a beacon of female audacity in a world that was predominantly dominated by men. Her daring act did result in her capture. She was apprehended, arrested, and brought to trial for her criminal activities. However, her story did not end with her arrest. Pearls became a national sensation, capturing headlines nationwide. The press, captivated by her audacity, christened her the Bandit Queen. Despite her illicit activities, Pearl Hart became a folk hero of sorts. Her daring act was viewed by some as a challenge to the societal norms of the time. It was as if Pearl was making a bold declaration that women were not to be underestimated. Her act resonated with people, shaking societal norms at their core. In the end, Pearl Hart's life and exploits serve as a stark reminder of the lawless times that were the Wild West. Her audacity, bravery, and refusal to conform to societal norms challenged the nation. Her story is a testament to the power of audacity and the human spirit. Pearl Hart, the Lady Bandit, showed that a woman could match and even surpass the audacity of her male counterparts. Martha Calamity Jane, a woman whose true nature has been the subject of endless debate. In the annals of history, few figures have been as intriguing, controversial, and enigmatic as Martha Jane Canary, better known as Calamity Jane. Her existence, her exploits, and her legacy have been the subject of much speculation, debate, and controversy. From the legends passed down, we know that she was born around 1852 in Missouri, the oldest of 6 children. Family traveled to Montana in search of better opportunities but was met with hardship and tragedy. With the death of her parents, Jane had to step up and become the caretaker of her younger siblings. But hardships of those early years were merely a prelude to the tumultuous life she would later lead. Calamity. Jane emerged as a character from the Wild West, a frontier woman who claimed to have lived a life of adventure and danger. She boasted of her exploits as a scout, a ride with the Pony Express, and her skills as a sharpshooter. Rumors even circulated about her association with other famous figures from the Wild West, such as Wild Bill Hickok. Her stories painted a picture of a woman who was fearless and independent, capable of holding her own in a world dominated by men. But was Calamity Jane really the woman she claimed to be? Or was her rugged, fearless frontierswoman persona just a mask, cleverly designed to hide a life of reckless behavior, criminal activities, and to manipulate those around her? This has been a question that has puzzled many over the years. On the other side of the coin, there is a different narrative. Detractors pointed to her known struggle with alcoholism, her brawling, and her run-ins with the law as evidence of a life less than virtuous. It was said that she used her tales of adventure to deceive and manipulate, to cover up a life of crime and debauchery. Some even suggested that her heroic exploits were little more than tall tales, spun to gain fame and fortune. These contradicting narratives add to the complexity and mystery of Calamity Jane. Was she the intrepid scout and plainswoman boldly facing the challenges of the Wild West with grit, determination, and boundless courage? Or was she an opportunist, a woman who used fabricated tales of valor to carve out a place for herself in history, to achieve fame and fortune? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between these two extremes. Life in the Wild West was harsh, unforgiving, and demanded strength, resilience, and more than a little cunning. For a woman to survive and thrive in such an environment, she must have possessed some degree of both courage and cunning. Calamity Jane, with her tales of adventure and her questionable actions, could well have embodied both. Like the Wild West itself, Calamity Jane's life was a complex tapestry of fact and fiction, bravery and bravado, lawlessness and legend. Her story was a mirror of the era she lived in, wild, untamed, and filled with larger-than-life characters. It was an era where truth and myth were often intertwined, where heroes could be villains and villains could be heroes. In the end, perhaps it is fitting that Calamity Jane, a woman of such complexity and contradiction, should be a symbol of Wild West. The West was a place of both opportunity and danger, beauty and brutality, law and lawlessness. And Calamity Jane, with her blend of courage and cunning, adventure and ambiguity, represents all these aspects. She stands as a testament to the spirit of the era, a symbol of the Wild West's allure and its harsh realities. So, who was the real Calamity Jane? Was she a hero or a villain, a truth-teller or a deceiver, a figure of courage or a figure of infamy? The answer may be all of these things and none of them. Like the West itself, Calamity Jane is a character shrouded in mystery, contradiction, and intrigue. She is a symbol of the West, embodying its spirit of adventure and its shadow of infamy. Calamity Jane, a woman whose legend is as wild as the West itself. These stories paint a chilling picture of the Wild West, a region where lawlessness wasn't just a man's game. The Wild West, often painted in the romantic hues of tales of gun-slinging cowboys and notorious outlaws, was also home to a more sinister, unspoken reality. It was a place where the boundaries blurred, where not just men, but women too, were players in a terrifying game of survival and dominance. Through the course of our exploration, we've journeyed through the tales of women whose deeds would send a chill down the spine of even the most hardened frontiersmen. These were women who dared to challenge societal norms and etched their names in the annals of history, with acts both audacious and horrifying. First, we bring to light the story of the Bandit Queen. She was an outlaw who has now become the stuff of legends, her name whispered with a mix of fear and awe. Alongside her gang of ruthless criminals, she left a path of destruction in her wake, her crimes ranging from petty thefts to cold-blooded murders. Her reign of terror served as a stark reminder that the Wild West was not just a man's world. Women, too, had their roles to play, roles that were often as dark as they were daring. Then we recount the spine-chilling tale of America's first serial killer family. A matriarch-led clan, they turned the promise of sanctuary into a horrifying ordeal of plunder and murder. Their narrative paints a gruesome picture of the length some would go to ensure survival in the harsh, unforgiving wilderness of the Wild West. Next, we delve into the Lady Bandit, a woman who donned the garb of a criminal, her true identity hidden behind a mask of fear and respect. Her outrageous exploits were a clear demonstration of the relentless pursuit of power and wealth that permeated the lawless West. The audacity of her actions and her unyielding spirit have carved her name into the chapters of the Wild West's history. And who could forget the enigmatic tale of the Frontierswoman, a woman whose true nature still remains shrouded in mystery? Was she a hero, a fraud, or something far more sinister? Her story continues to captivate, presenting a complex puzzle that highlights the uncertain and often dangerous allure of the Wild West. A narrative that transcends time. It keeps us guessing, tying us in knots of intrigue and speculation. Apart from these, there were countless others. Women who, in the heart of the Wild West, carved their names in blood and fear. Their tales are a testament, a reminder that the fairer sex could be just as fearsome, just as ruthless, not more so. These women were not mere footnotes in history. but rather they were the embodiment of the dark side of the Wild West. This dark side, shadowed by the romanticized tales of cowboys and outlaws, is a side that continues to both fascinate and terrify. It serves as a reminder of the human capacity for both good and evil, and the lengths to which individuals can go when survival is at stake. They were not mere footnotes in history, but rather, they were the embodiment of the Wild West's dark side, a side that continues to fascinate, terrify, and remind us of the human capacity for both good and evil.